Hey everybody, it's your old pal Glenn Fricker here, back again with yet another exciting video. Today, we're going to go over 13 reasons why Pro Tools is just plain better than that yucky, stinky, smelly excuse for a digital audio workstation, Reaper. Now, before we get started, I have to be completely transparent here. I've actually been using Reaper for many years now. Back in the day, I used to use another inferior DAW called Saw Studio. It was written in machine language and it was faster than the spreading of COVID at a Trump rally, but it didn't support Slate's virtual mix rack. Reaper, on the other hand, did, and I've been soiling my poor hands with it ever since. And just like the prisoners at Guantanamo Bay listening to Nickelback every day, I've gotten used to the torture. But I have seen the light, and instead of continuing to suffer with the horrors of Reaper, I will surrender my soul to the Church of Avid Technology. You heard me right. I am finally ready to begin my journey with the best DAW in the world, Pro Tools. Number 1, the name is cooler, plus it has Pro in it like all great things. Of course Pro Tools is better than Reaper. It has the word Pro in it, and as we all know, if something has the word Pro in it, then it's the top of the line and the best on the market. Putting the word Pro next to your product automatically makes it better. Just look at all the tech companies engaging in planned obsolescence with the devices that all have the word Pro on them. Even the name Pro Tools makes me think of someone sitting behind a large SSL console, working on the next big album that will certainly leave a huge impact on the music industry. Reaper just kind of sounds like the name of that long-haired hippie down the street that still lives with his mom and doesn't shower very much either. That alone makes Pro Tools just plain better. Number 2, it just sounds better. I know what we're all thinking, but Glenn, how can a DAW have a sound? This isn't Harrison Mix Bus. It's not emulating a console, so shouldn't recordings sound the same in both Pro Tools and Reaper? And while that may be a valid question, I can assure you that Pro Tools just sounds way better than Reaper. Just listen to the average mix done by someone using Pro Tools and the average mix done by somebody using Reaper. It's night and day! This, of course, has nothing to do with the fact that Reaper is way cheaper and people who are just starting out would prefer to learn the basics of audio production without selling a kidney and have their liver on the dark web. Don't believe me? Well, I happen to have 2 mixes of the same song, one mixed on Pro Tools and one mixed in Reaper. Check it out! You see? Completely different. The Pro Tools version sounds like a professional mix and the Reaper one sounds like ugly digital noise. It just goes to show that spending more money can really make you a better engineer. Number 3, it's more expensive, so it must be better. Reaper only costs $60. Pro Tools Standard version costs $600 and the Pro Tools Ultimate version costs $2,600. So obviously that means it's 10 to 50 times better, right? Expensive just means better. Like how a Lamborghini is automatically 50 times better than a Honda Civic, despite both of these being vehicles with the same purpose, getting you from point A to point B. Except one of those is going to do it far more cost efficiently. What's even more amazing is that the $600 to $2,600 you'll pay for Pro Tools Perpetual will come with 1 whole year of updates, plus the best support plan anyone in the history of planning has ever planned! Do keep in mind, however, that after the year has passed, you can still keep your copy of Pro Tools, you just won't be able to update to a newer version, and you'll be stuck with a possibly buggy revision of the program. Plus, if you dare raise concerns about this, the fine folks at Avid will introduce you to the naughty finger. So, basically, unless you pony up to renew that perpetual license, you're probably going to end up with more problems than you can afford to deal with. But who cares? That's more than a reasonable price to pay for even being allowed to use such an amazing program, right? Who cares that Reaper is 1/10 to 1/50th the cost, has updates for free, and does basically the same thing? No one I've heard uses it, so obviously it can't be any good. Number 4, you can even rent it. A few years ago, Avid adopted the wonderful monthly subscription model, and for the low price of $30 a month, you can pay for the privilege of renting the finest piece of recording software on the planet. And that's just the standard version. Pro Tools Ultimate, which has even more nifty features that nobody ever actually uses, costs a measly $80 a month. And what's even cooler is that Avid has even been gracious enough to allow us, the consumers, to pay $300 a year for the standard version or $800 a year for the Ultimate version. Wow! Those are some amazing savings! The fine folks at Avid have truly blessed us with their predatory business strategy. But why did they decide to go with this route? Well, they didn't want those evil, nasty internet pirates to illegally obtain the software that they've worked very hard on. Because we all know digital rights management works flawlessly and no one has figured out a way around it. It also serves as a way to lure in new customers that would have gone with another competing option such as Logic, Cubase, and even, yes, stinky old Reaper, with the seemingly low monthly price tag. A very smart business choice indeed. How else do you expect the CEO to afford his third Tesla this month? It's not all about the money though, because Avid have a solution even for you broke high school kids out there who are too good to get a job and prefer to spend your allowance on video games and marijuana. 5. There's a free version. That's right, free Pro Tools, woohoo! The Church of Avid Technology are truly Christ-like in their generosity. If you're broke and buying Pro Tools would mean you not being able to pay your rent, or even worse, not being able to afford your World of Warcraft subscription, Avid have you covered with Pro Tools First, which is a heavily stripped down version of the full product, and much like the bass player in your band, it comes with its own assortment of handicaps. How stripped down is it? Well, you can only run a limited amount of tracks, save only 3 projects, and you only get 1/6 of the plugins the full version comes with. Now, don't be discouraged because of those drawbacks. Having the Pro Tools badge in your studio will obviously get you more clients and more work than if you were using Reaper, which doesn't have any of those pesky limitations. Now, you might have seen Pro Tools First come bundled with some inexpensive interfaces like the Focusrite Scarletts. Since you're probably buying that interface as a beginner, you might not be aware of just how many DAWs, including free ones, are out there, which really all do the same thing. This is a great way to incentivize you to try it, because learning any DAW, no matter which one you start with, can take quite a bit of time. That way, when you eventually do learn how to use Pro Tools First and start to realize you need more than 3 savable projects, every other DAW will initially seem too complicated to switch to, and the frustration of having to learn a new one from scratch will keep you on the Pro Tools teat, and is exactly what Avid are banking on. That way, they can continue to separate you from your hard-earned money and ensure that you keep working with their incredible industry-standard DAW until you end up living under a bridge and in an old refrigerator box. 6. It's the industry standard. Just like pitch correction and drum sample replacement, Pro Tools is an absolute necessity in the pro-level recording and mixing industry. Pro Tools was the first DAW, so naturally that just means it's the best. Just like the Steam engine, it's never going to be surpassed, right? Being the first real digital means of recording and mixing music certainly played a big factor in helping Pro Tools become the industry standard, and it's held onto that label to this day. Despite the fact that big studios all over the world are closing their doors, and home and project studios is where most of the work is being done nowadays. Pro Tools is and always will be the best, no matter how many third-rate engineers will tell themselves otherwise. When your clients come into your studio and they see that you're using Reaper instead of Pro Tools, they will automatically walk out the door because they know that any other program is not worthy of having their super special awesome songs recorded on them. Even though most of them probably use Reaper at home to track their demos and probably don't really mind recording on it. 7. The plugins it comes with look better. As we all know, the visual design of a plugin is the most important thing, and that's a big reason why Pro Tools is superior to Reaper. The plugins that come with Reaper look horrible, don't they? Seriously, how is anybody supposed to use a plugin if it isn't shiny and colorful? And how do the guys who made Reaper expect anyone to get any work done when most of the plugins don't have 200 presets? Don't they realize that mixing from scratch is boring? While some of the Pro Tools plugins aren't very shiny or colorful either, others are made to look just like high-end vintage gear, like the 1176 compressor and the Pultec EQ. So naturally, that means that they must sound exactly like those units. I mean, it's not like Reaper has a vast plugin library in the form of JS plugins that have the exact same functionality, but just don't look as pretty. Sure, sliders are much easier to work with on a screen than virtual knobs, but as we all know, all the amazing producers who insist that Pro Tools is the best are themselves very big knobs. And you should listen to them because they use Pro Tools. Pro Tools is a lot like grunge music in this regard. Lots of style, not a whole lot of substance. And that's why it's so good, because Nirvana, a lot like Pro Tools, was making huge waves back in the 90s and is still beloved to this day, despite being not all that good. 8. It comes with awesome virtual instruments. Yes, sir. For those of you who are into virtual instruments because the people you record can't play the real ones to save their lives, Pro Tools has you covered, and you better believe that they are the best in the industry. Ignoring the fact that the pro-level guys who use Pro Tools don't even use these since they're, recording real instruments on big studios, or as engineers love to do, they spend more money and end up buying third-party virtual instruments like Native Instruments Complete or Arturia Analog Lab. Reaper, on the other hand, doesn't come with any virtual instruments and is therefore inferior. Of course, you could find freeware alternatives or purchase one of the thousands of affordable sound libraries out there, but that takes a lot of time and research and might end up giving you your own approach and your own workflow to the music you're working on. And that's not something you really want. Remember, this is 2021. The band that you're working with wants to sound just like everyone else on Nuclear Blast and Sumerian Records. Number 9. Customizability is overrated.
You will assimilate.
There are no existing ways to customize anything in Pro Tools, and that is a great thing. Who in the world would want to change how Pro Tools looks or operates? Pro Tools is perfect just the way it is. Reaper, on the other hand, is very customizable, but this is only because nobody likes how it looks or operates as it is. For starters, the Reaper forums are flooded with many themes that you can download, simply drag into your themes folder, and make Reaper look like a real DAW. There's even one to make it look like Pro Tools, so that alone proves that it's worse because it's literally just a cheap imitation. Pro Tools doesn't allow you to change your shortcuts, meaning that you will have to learn the perfect shortcut system that Avid have designed, while in Reaper, the possibilities of customizing shortcuts, macros, and functions is practically limitless. But you are a producer and not a programmer. Who has the time to set up their DAW for efficient use when there's mediocre music to record? Number 10. It uses iLoks for maximum security. If you're ready to accept the fact that Pro Tools is the best DAW in the world, there is one final step you'll have to make. You see, before you can activate Pro Tools, you'll need to download the iLoks License Manager. This is an extremely useful feature and not a completely pointless obstacle that makes sure your copy of Pro Tools is safe and secure. It also makes sure that the fine folks at Avid can sleep soundly at night knowing that not as many people are stealing the software that they barely pay their desk monkeys minimum wage to code. But before the naysayers come in and start questioning the legitimacy of this practice, rest assured that you don't necessarily need that USB dongle and that you can use the iLoks cloud to run your licenses instead. Well, as long as the cloud isn't down and you have an internet connection. But now about the cloud going down, I'm sure that's never happened, and the people who are complaining about it are whining over nothing. 11. Dedicated hardware. Avid make a whole bunch of shiny hardware with a ton of shiny LEDs that you can use specifically with Pro Tools. Everything from interfaces to expensive converters to DAW controllers with cool faders that are all sure to impress your potential clients and make them think that you know what you're doing, even though you're not going to be using these very much. And while there may be superior products out there that have better designs, look cooler, and at a fraction of the cost even, Avid's overpriced hardware is totally worth it because it works specifically with Pro Tools. Why would you even want all the other great and affordable gear that will work just the same with every other DAW on the planet when you can spend tens of thousands of dollars to make people think that your job is harder than it actually is and that you're better than you really are? Number 12. All the recording schools use it. Oh yes, audio school. You know, the place people go to learn all sorts of great skills in the hopes of landing a job in the music industry, but usually end up serving you fries or coffee? If you want to be taken seriously in the field of professional audio, it doesn't matter how much time you put into learning how to record, how to place microphones, how to mix, dealing with the day-to-day of running your own project studio, and so on. All of this is meaningless if you don't have a diploma. That's right. All of your efforts are completely meaningless unless they're supervised by an institution that requires you to go into debt, even if you can't afford to pay for it. And the best part, all of the schools use Pro Tools. And if they say it's the best, then nobody else's opinion matters. Why would it? They don't even have diplomas. Never mind the catalog of work they've done or the knowledge that they may have. That doesn't matter if their education wasn't ordained by an institution that puts people into debt and makes them miserable. The truth of the matter is that Reaper is nowhere to be seen in audio schools. Of course not, because it's bad. If you want to learn how to use Reaper, you'll have to resort to digging through the sewers of the internet and try to learn from some independent content creators on YouTube. Or even worse, visit Pro Mix Academy and purchase far less expensive courses like the Ultimate Reaper Guide from Adam Steele. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't pay a single cent, much less $97 for an extensive and informative course on one of the world's most affordable DAWs. Not to mention that Adam Steele is British. Why would you want to support something like that when you can buy American and bury yourself in mountains of debt? 13. It just works. You guys play video games, right? So you probably know about Todd Howard, the CEO of Bethesda, who is famous for misleading people about the quality of the games his company produces by continuously repeating, "It just works." And it's the same with Pro Tools. It just works. Never mind that the program is infamous for crashing all the time at the most critical points of a recording session. That, ladies and gentlemen, is an intended feature, not an issue. You see, if you're charging hourly rates, the more your software crashes, the more time you have to spend restarting it, meaning that your client will spend more time at your studio and end up paying you more. It's genius! Despite Reaper barely ever crashing on me in the last few years of using it, its stability is not a selling point because professionals don't use it. You should also pay no mind to the fact that Pro Tools hogs your computer's resources like they're an insane person hogging all the toilet paper during a global pandemic. That just means it's working harder to make your project sound better. On the other hand, Reaper is much less straining on your CPU and sort of just stays in the background, not causing you any major hiccups. That's because it was written by the same guys who wrote Winamp back in the day and sold it for a big sum of money. They got rich and wrote Reaper themselves. They didn't need a huge team that would change annually, coming in and out of a revolving door. So if any bugs or issues are presented, it's relatively easy for them to find and fix the problem. The people who wrote the code for Pro Tools in 2011 were all fired, probably because the code wasn't perfect. And the people who revised that code a few years later were also fired because they didn't perfectly fix the issues with an already perfect program. It could take someone new in the Pro Tools coding team weeks to find the issue with the code, and because they're paid for results, they'll just write some extra lines in as a fix. But unfortunately, that adds extra processing time to the program, resulting in a slow, janky mess that takes forever to load and has some of the worst optimizations of any DAW on the market. Wait, why is this the industry standard again? This one's gonna be a bitch. Okay, there we go. One more fucking time! Fuck! Pro Tool. Fuck! Using Pro Tools. God damn it! Fuck off! Ow! Jesus fucking Christ! Jesus fucking Christ! How am I supposed to say this out loud?